Hi, for the next stage of the video I'm going to be looking to install the Elmod RC unit, which has just arrived this week. So let's start by having a quick look in the box that came. Now you actually get quite a nice tin box with an Elmod badge on the top of it and a selection of things inside. First of all, and most importantly, you get a replacement board. Got to handle it quite delicately because the wires are quite thin. So looking at it, in terms of the things that I recognise, these plugs here are mainly equivalent to the plugs which are already in the half-track, and you've got an on-off switch here. There's a little SD card, you'll see it there, and that I think holds all of the sounds. A number of coloured leads that plug into the 4 transmitter channels, plus a fifth one which I think is for the power, which again will come off the receiver. A couple of orange wires at the end here for a speaker. I have read that if you try and hook up the speaker which is already in the half-track, you will blow it quite quickly, and it's recommended that you use an 8 ohm resistance speaker. I do have a number of those that I'm going to try with this, and I'll dig them out in a minute. Usefully, here we've got a volume control, so if you can hear the speaker distorting, I guess that you can change the volume. It's quite a thick board, a number of fairly large capacitors and various chips on it, and that's that for now. The other things that come in the box here, you've got what I believe is the configurator. This plugs into the board. There's a USB plug on the end of it that you'll see there, and they also give you a USB extension lead so that you can leave the unit in the truck and plug into a PC, I expect. In this video I won't be concentrating on configuring it. I'm just going to use the thing as it stands, and here we have a set of instructions in English telling us which colour goes with which channel, and also a little map of the board, which hopefully you can see here, that tells you what all of the various components are on it. So what I'm going to be doing in the video is working through all of the steps of the instructions and hopefully having a fully working tank. In terms of extra things that I'm going to need to complete this project, I'm going to be using my Spectrum DX10T transmitter, which I must admit is my favourite for vehicles. For land vehicles it's usually quite useful, and boats it's quite useful to have a spring on the throttle stick, and on the DX10 by doing up various things which are inside these holes in the back, you can adjust spring tension, or in fact put on a ratchet and have no spring tension at all, so it's quite adaptable. There are a number of buttons and switches around it, including some momentary buttons. There are 2 on each stick. See here and here. In the first place, I just want to set the thing up in a standard fashion. If I wanted to later on, functions like turning the lights on and off, turning the engine on and off, I expect, and any sounds that I wanted to load onto that chip, I could probably set some mixes and assign different switches to different things. But in the first place, I'm just going to keep the whole thing simple. Right. Other things which aren't really very many. You need an 8 ohm speaker, and I do have a few here. This one here is the kind that you get with Henglong or Tagan tanks. It says on the speaker that it's 8 ohm and 5 watts, which I think is more than enough, but it's probably going to be a bit of a challenge for me to fit into the truck. I do have a couple of other options, and these really weren't very expensive. I have this one here, which I think is 4 watts and is also 8 ohms. It's quite a small speaker, and a speaker that looks pretty similar but I think is slightly less power. I think it's 2 watts here, which seems to look pretty similar to the one which I just showed you, but it comes in a case, and I'm thinking that maybe the box is going to give a slightly deeper sound. The final thing which is needed is a receiver to go inside the truck that I need to bind onto the transmitter, and the receiver which I'm going to be using for this, it's Spectrum DSM 2 compatible, but it's much cheaper than the genuine Spectrum items, and it's very small, and here you'll see it. And this is marketed by a company called Lemon. I assume that that's perhaps not a pun, but I'm certainly aware of orange receivers. This bit of plastic here, I think, is if you want to wrap it around and protect the receiver. Right, on the transmitter, I set up a new model, just set up as a basic aircraft, and just about to bind. And for binding, I'm just going to be using a 3.7 volt LiPo that I've got knocking around. With these Lemon receivers, the outer plugs here are negative, the middle is positive, and the inside is the signal. So bind plug is the end one, and so what I'll do is I'll just pop that on there. Blinking light means that we're in bind mode. On the transmitter, select bind. It's binding. Oh, it says bind failed. Let's try that again. Here we go, it's binding as a DSM-2 1024 22 milliseconds, and we're all good to go. Right, so with the Lemon receiver, it doesn't actually come with instructions, but they're easy enough to download from the internet. And looking at the guide here and the instructions for the Elmod, the pins, when it's put this way around from the bottom, the very bottom row is binding, and then after that we've got throttle, aileron, elevator and rudder for the purpose of this, because it's a 4-channel setup. The steering and the acceleration are all on the right stick, which are the brown and the orange, and so the brown goes to the elevator, which is, if you discount the bind plug, is the third one up, and the steering, which is the orange one, goes to the aileron, which is the next one up from the throttle, which means that it is going to be the second one up if you discount the bind plug row. I've guessed that for the left stick, that the yellow wire on the Elmod unit is going to go to throttle, and lastly the rudder is going to go to green. So the wires which I'm talking about are the coloured wires on the board here. Obviously I will test all of this before I completely install everything. Now for the next job, just making sure everything's going to go. Yes, I'm going to need my screwdriver. Yeah, so for the next stage, I'm going to involve getting to the board. I've already undone the two screws at the front, and I'm just now, and I don't know if the camera can get in there, I'm doing the 2 screws at the back of the board. Okay, so if I just gently lift this out, just moving my aerial out of the way for a moment. And then gently unplugging the gun and turret from the main board. I can set that to one side. I just take out the 2 screws from the back. Right, so this board is supposed to be a direct replacement for the original board. The switch here, I expect that's going to locate in the same place. I can see how the board is screwed down here and here, which corresponds to the hole in the Elmod board. And what I'm going to do is to very carefully disassemble it. Just try and find my screwdriver. Here we go, here's the screwdriver. So the first thing that I'm going to do, actually I'll probably leave the speaker where it is, it's not doing any great harm, just for the moment at least. And the speaker, unplugs there. Yeah, actually on second thoughts it's probably tidier to take the whole speaker unit out, and there seem to be 2 parts to that. So this is the board here with whatever it does. Whoops. Put the screw there, and then the speaker. So as I said earlier, my understanding is that if you try and use the speaker which is already mounted in the truck, it's likely to get blown by the power of the new board. That's certainly what I've seen on 1 or 2 forums. The speaker's all quite magnetic. Here we go, so it really is quite a tiny speaker. That's now out and we've got a bit of space in here. Clearly I wouldn't simply be able to mount a huge speaker like the one there. I'm hoping that maybe this speaker might be able to sit at the back or something, but I'll figure that out later. As far as the board goes, it would appear that this wire here, and I think it's probably easier to unplug the wires while the board is still screwed down. I think that this must be the main power. This wire, this plug at the top here, so the camera a little closer, seems to be for the servos. And I would say this one at the back here, this two wire one, I would say this is yes, I can see it moving. This is for the motor, and this one here could be, no, actually this one here can't be. Oh no, this one's not for the servos. This one at the top is for the lights, and then this 3-wire here plug is for the servo. Right, so let's get the board off. Sorry if this video is a little bit slow, but I think that anybody who's going to invest £130 in the Elmod board could be interested in seeing the whole thing. Feel free to fast forward if you're finding this a little bit tedious. And there are little plastic rings in there to hold the board down. The board should now just lift off, which it does. The only other thing left attached is the aerial wire here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that, because that could always, I'm going to cut it a little way down, but that could always be soldered again together afterwards. So the aerial pulls through, and here we have two other power wires, so I guess there must be two sets of power wires depending on whether you're powering from the batteries, which I expect is this plug, or if you're powering straight off the jack, which is, or the plug which is inside the battery compartment for plugging a battery straight into it, which is in fact what I'm doing. So I'm going to need to cut those wires as well. And bearing in mind it's a little bit live, I should really take the battery out, and there's a LiPo battery in there. I'll cut the wires individually. There we go. So here we have the original Torro board, perfectly good, but it's not really the way that I want to run this truck. Hopefully you've noticed the text which I've managed to put at the bottom of the video, and it didn't take me too long to notice that actually there was no way I was going to get that original receiver into the truck. Luckily I was able to borrow a version of what is the same receiver with the end plugs, and the binding and the plug positions and everything else is exactly the same. And what I noticed was with the other one, not only would it not fit inside the tanks here, which is where I was expecting to put it on one side or the other, and would have involved a lot of cutting them about, and it still might do, but it would seem that this receiver is more likely to fit in the area of the speaker. So I won't be putting a tiny speaker in, so I don't think that that's too much of a loss, and so that's what I think I'm going to do. Before I put the Elmod board in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these two power wires here, which are coming off the plug in the battery compartment where I've plugged in the LiPo, and I'm going to attach them to the two ends here, which are coming off the battery box. Because you can never entirely trust wiring on what are essentially toys, I am going to check the polarity, because it will be not very nice to blow my brand new Elmod board before I've even installed it by putting it the wrong way. And over the years there have been one or two ESCs without reverse voltage protection, and I've got no idea if this board has got that or not, and it has blown the FETs and it's destroyed speed controllers. Right, so put a bit of heat shrink on first. Yeah, I've got a piece of, well, red and black wire, which are probably longer than I need, but I've got plenty of room in here for tucking wires around. I just want to make the installation as easy as possible. Bring up the heat shrink, use the soldering iron just to shrink it. That's good. And then what I'm going to want to do is bring the wire around and attach red to the red battery terminal. That's gone on pretty easily, and then I'll do the same thing for the other side. And then a quick check with the multimeter, and because I've got a 3-cell LiPo in there, let's get it in the right place. Right, we're showing a positive 11.14 volts, and so we know that we've got it around the right way. Right, for the next part, I've lifted all of the wires out of the way. This is okay, and what I'm going to do is just gently offer the new Elmod board up. There seems to be a little bit of snagging near the power wires. Let's try that again. I just don't want to bend anything. and we seem to have a good fit. I know that the power, let's lift this up a moment, there, everything seems to be in place. These two capacitors here, I just had to move ever so slightly, and I think that the power cable will reach. Just see, it seems to be the tightest one. If I can get it in, I think it'll stay there. Quite hard to get in. In fact, what I'll probably do is just lift the board out for a moment, perhaps plug in the power first, making sure that the switch is off. That seems to have gone in okay. The orange speaker cable wires were caught underneath. I've got those out. I would say got to definitely, these capacitors are definitely a little bit in the way. That seems to be all right. Good. Okay. And if I turn the unit on, we have green flashing lights. So that can't be all bad. The next job to do will be to put the two screws in. I'm certainly not going to push my luck any further with these capacitors because I really don't want them to snap off. Right, to get these screws in the easiest way, hopefully will be with the help tweezers. It doesn't need to be particularly tight, I don't think, just enough to hold it in place. The little plastic ring from earlier, hopefully it will go on the back bit too. Seems to be okay. And again, tweezers. Try again. Hold the screw while it gets started. Okay, so that's the board mounted, and it looks as if Caesar's going to fit in there all right. Time to wire up the radio. Right, having looked a little bit more carefully around the inside, it looks as if I can actually put the receiver down the side here, and it misses the top. I seem to have some room in there, and I'm going to start with this speaker here, and I need to solder the two wires on, and whoops, and I found that it fits neatly just about there, and with a bit of foam that I cut out, and you can see it's kind of an L shape because I won't want it rattling around, and that I think I can tuck in the front here, and we ought to be able to screw everything down. So that's the basic plan. The volume knob will go somewhere around here, and I've looked underneath the gun unit, and I'm going to have to be careful to try and miss these places where the, if you can see, try and miss these places where the screws are, and the volume knob I think is going to probably come up in the middle of this seat here. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is plug in some of the wires, and I'm going to make sure that I tidy all of the wires up. This is the speaker, and try and run wires as far as I can out of the way. Right, so looking at the instructions, the first wire that I'm going to plug in is I'll plug in the servo wire, number 9 steering servo, so that's just about here. It seems to have a slightly different layout to the one in the instructions, which is quite interesting. Number 12, the configurator, which is shown at the end by the switch, I would say has been moved to here. But apart from that, I think that we're about the same. So the steering servo, which we know has got 3 wires, this one here is going to go, let's put it into the socket, if all that. That seems to be fine. This one here with the 4, which on the instructions is number 10, the light connector. Goes just behind the switch. All a bit fiddly. That's that one. The wires aren't too stretched, so that's okay. We've got the 4 servo wires, so just keep those out of the way for a minute. And the other one with just 2 connectors, and I'll just pull this other receiver by this receiver power wire out of the way. And so the last one for us to plug in, which is the motor, goes at the back there. That all seems good. The speaker wires, going to need to be soldered on. I'll do that in a few moments. Right, so for the receiver, what we said was the first one was the bind plug, so we don't use that for anything. And on my printout of the receiver instructions, I actually wrote down which goes to which colour. So the first one is yellow, and I know that the signal wire is at the top, so push that in, followed by orange. It's orange. There. Followed by brown. Followed by green. That. And then if we want the receiver to have some power, the black wire goes to the bottom. I could put it in the bind, but I won't. I'll put it in the next one along. So that's all of the wires in the receiver. Right, well, I'm dying to see if it works, so before I solder on the speaker, let's fire it up and see what happens. That's transmitter on. That's tank on. Right, I'll just bring this so that you can see both. So I'm expecting this one to be the steering. Just show you there. Apart from being the wrong way around, that seems to work. The next thing that I'll try is the throttle. I'll just lift the truck up for a moment, and that should be backwards and forwards on the right stick. Now that's not doing anything. Right, it says move the stick to the uppermost position to ignite the engine, so that's possibly why. So we move that up to there. Let's see. No? Nothing. Let's try the other way. It might be the wrong way around. So far we've only got steering. We do seem to have something. Right, okay, so that seems to be working so far. Right, if I now just plug in the turret for a moment. which needs to plug in down here actually. Let's try to plug it in the wrong place. This wire is definitely a bit of a stretch. I'll just rest that there. So if I move it, oh, we seem to have flashing guns. Right, so that is, so when you pull it fully back, that turns the machine guns on, that turns it off, that seems to work. Almost seems to have brake lights as well, and left, and it'll either move very slowly or very fast. And if I just move it a little bit, the guns move up and down, and if I put it right way back, the guns start shooting, and you can see the gun shooting, the guns stop shooting. Right, so everything seems to work. My left and right on that stick is okay. So when you want to raise the guns, you push it forward, you lower them. So the stick direction on this side is correct, and on this side I need to reverse all of the stick operations. Okay, so what I'll do is pull this back out, and I don't really want to pull it in and out too many times. Take this out, mount the receiver down here. I'll probably just use some double-sided foam tape just to keep it in place. Solder up the speaker, put the foam in, make a hole in the seat and see if I can get away with just resting the volume control in. I'll show you where I get to.